Kayla, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that to you. Aside. I won't have you do it. I don't want you to be nervous. Okay, we're gonna start the meeting. Tonight is the Board of Selectmen meeting, February 28, 2023 at 6:30 PM. Roll call. I am the first Selectman, Bob Carlson. Also with us tonight, Selectman Brett Mastriani and Selectman Nicole Porter. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Is there any public comment on non-agenda items? Online or in person? Okay, Charlie Smith from the audience with no microphone says he wanted to acknowledge that the highway garage did a nice job. Thank you. I think I would agree. Thank you, Mr. Smith. That it? Anybody online? Okay. Okay, moving forward, selectmen comments. Is there anything from either selectman they'd like to comment on?
Yeah, I just need to, I said I'd read an email that I got from Joseph Zakiki.
Okay.
He wrote, "Hi, Mr. Mastriani, I'm doing a requirement for Boy Scouts where I have to ask about an issue affecting our town currently. One thing I was thinking of was what we are going to do with the old school property. Is there anything that kids my age can do?" I believe he's in 7th grade, can do to help. Personally, I think we should turn it into something where people could go there, have fun, like indoor soccer or other sports with a cafe or something. If you could let me know what we can do to help, that would be great. So I did respond to him and said that we're talking about it in March and that I'd let him know when that meeting was to help him get involved.
We were talking about probably more like June, but that's okay.
Okay.
But if,
Sure.
yeah, with Tom, we have a community conversation. We'll have it. I think it's up to you guys. I thought we'd wait till after the budget season. So we're on a positive note and we'd have a community conversation like we did this past year and get as many people from town as possible. And I'd love to have some of the people from school participate in that. So his sister actually is coming in to see me Thursday afternoon at 2:30, maybe to discuss the same thing. I'm not sure.
Right. Maybe
So-
they're double teaming it.
Okay. Thank you, Brett. Anything else? Okay. All right, just a couple of things from me. So I sent you emails earlier this week to tell you I had to do testimony on something that's come up on Indian Affairs on trust land, and you saw the testimony that I provided. So you have a copy of that. Another bill that I'm working on in Hartford is the solar bill where they're trying to put themselves in a position to not pay taxes on personal property. We know there's one solar farm that was the siting council approved as a 5 megawatt solar farm, and they're telling us it's not a 5, it's a 2, 2, and 1, knowing that if you're under 3, you don't have to pay taxes on the materials on the solar panels. So Heather Summers and a few of her colleagues are working on a bill. I have to go to Hartford on Friday and testify on that bill and how that would hurt a small town like North Stonington when the siting council tells us we're going to get this and we don't have much to say about it, and now we can't tax it. So that would be detrimental to our town. So those two, both the Indian Affairs bill and that bill, are both bills that would be very detrimental to North Stonington.
What is the size of the solar farm that is the cutoff?
3.
3.
And this is a pre-approved 5 megawatt solar farm that now they're saying is 2, 2, and 1. We have another solar farm in town up on Ella Wheeler and one coming on Silicon Ranches on Route 184. And if this got approved, then we would then lose tax money on all our solar farms. Any questions on that? Okay. Is there any questions on either the bill in Hartford dealing with Indian Affairs or the bill in Hartford now that's going to be dealing with solar farms? If there is, if not, we'll move on. Okay. Old business, demolition of the one-story Norwich Wesley Road. Good news is you can see that the building is completely down. The new wall is actually under construction. The metal studs are up. Tomorrow, they're bringing in 2 tractor trailers to get rid of the balance of the concrete they piled in one pile. And then Donnie Hill's going to meet them at 8:30 tomorrow morning and tell them how he wants it graded, how he wants it pitched. Once that's done, as each truck leaves with concrete, they're returning with topsoil. And they'll be putting the grading and topsoiling by the end of this week and early next week. And then it's just a matter of coming back to finish the wall and then do the hydro seed. And then we can look forward to a meeting in June.
So when you say finish the wall, like just like the outer part of the wall, like they've already reinforced what they needed to reinforce.
Right. So if you look close, there's some metal studs on the outside of the wall. They actually have to build a new wall up against that wall. So there's the metal studs and then they're going to insulate it. And then there's a thing called Dens glass. It's kind of like an exterior sheetrock. And after they put that on there, there's going to be a brick veneer put on so it matches the rest of the school. Which should look very nice. Any questions on that demo? Okay, if none,
Sorry, we don't have a final price.
no, but we looked at the bills and unless they give the town a change order, if they do work, they have to give us a change order, which I have to approve. There's no change orders other than what we already have. So if there's no other change orders, and I would have to come to you to approve it, I don't expect any, we might be able to give back a decent sum of money to the ARPA funds.
Okay.
Okay, vacancies and appointments. We have one appointment this evening, Robert Snowgrove. He has an engineering background. He originally wanted to be on planning and zoning, but we just couldn't work it out at this time. So I asked him, maybe he considered WPCA, get his foot wet there, learn how boards and commissions run. He went to their meeting, liked what he heard. They voted to approve him as a new member. And if we approve him tonight, he'll go down and get sworn in and he'll be ready to go for their next meeting. That board needs bodies, and this would be a great addition. Younger gentleman with an engineering background, which is exactly what you'd like on a WPCA commission. So I'd entertain a motion to appoint Robert Snowgrove to the WPCA.
I will make a motion to appoint Robert Snellgrove to the Water Pollution Control Authority.
Thank you for clarifying what WPCA meant. Thank you for that.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Brett. Okay, any other discussion?
Yeah, I just would like to mention that I think going forward, I would feel more comfortable of having the people that we appoint to appointed boards come to the selectmen's meeting when we appoint them, so we can kind of put a face with the name. We're a small town government. It's nice to be able to see who we're appointing.
Yeah, and he asked, and he might even be online, is he? Oh, he asked, and I said it wasn't necessary, but in the future we can do that if you
Yeah,
like.
I just think if we're appointing them, I know you've met him, but I think it's good for all of us.
Actually, I've
to-
never met him. I spoke to him on the phone many times, but I haven't met him.
Gotcha.
If you walked in, I wouldn't recognize him.
That would be nice.
Yeah, I think then we know who so if we see them in the street or we know who's on the boards and commissions.
That's an excellent,
That's it.
excellent idea, and I will definitely do it next time.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else? If no other discussion, all those in favor of appointing Robert Snowgrove to the Water Pollution Control Authority, say aye. Aye. Perfect. He's appointed and I'll let him know and he can come in and get sworn in by internet before the next meeting. ARPA funds update discussion. We kind of just touched on it a second ago, but Christine gave you in your packet a list of where we are, and you want to just review that all? You good with it? Anybody have any questions for Christine on it?
There really aren't many changes from the last meeting. So if you guys have any questions, let me know.
When's the actual end date that they have to be spent by?
So funds have to be expended by 2026, December 31st, 2026, but they have to be officially earmarked and put where they're going to go 2024.
Okay, perfect.
So you can create a project, assign the funds, and then have 2 years to spend it.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay, next, number 6, old business D, plan of conservation and development. We had our next to last focus meeting. It was last evening with EDC. It was not very well attended. nowhere near as well as attended as the one we had on a Saturday morning with conservation and affordable housing. But still, we had the meeting, and we have one left, which is affordable housing and housing as a Zoom meeting. I think that's coming up. Maybe is it next Saturday? Yep. And then after that, we're going to start moving into the neighborhood meetings. The first one I think is Monday, March 6th. I think that's the one up on up at the Baptist Church on Route 49. And then we'll have those, and if you can try to get to at least to one you live in, which I will, but also if you can maybe get to another one or two somewhere, just to see how the meeting's flowing and how the discussion's working and so on. But other than that, I don't have anything to report on when the conservation development, except that it's moving, the schedule is moving. Okay, number 7, transfer station bulky waste fee discussion. Just a couple of things on this, and then we'll have a general discussion. I've asked Alan and Charles Tuttle, who I hope to have transfer it and be the person that works at the transfer station to make sure that cars come in, have stickers, and we qualify who's using the station as part of the enforcement piece to this. We know that it's one thing to have sticker fees, but it's something different if we're not enforcing it. So they were going to visit both Montville and Preston. The reason is that neither of those towns use scales at this point. They use small, medium, large, and extra large trucks, and they want to see how that worked. In the meantime, we have scales on the property that we're looking at what it would cost to get those up and running. And we're also investigating what a new set of scales would be worth. Just so we have that information, we'll decide which way we're going to go. But I didn't want to just blindly jump into the small, medium, large, extra large truck without seeing how it works somewhere else and what kind of pushback they had and what kind of issues they've had with that in the past. So also, while Alan was visiting the Preston yard, he's got some really good ideas for the Board of Selectmen to come and present to us in the near future on some things that he and Donnie suggested, a way that they can actually get rid of trucks and transport their own material and so on. But I'm going to let him explain it to you because it's taking trucks off the road, adding one new truck and some containers and doing a lot of trucking ourselves. But if it makes sense, I said, put it on paper. It has to make sense financially, and it has to be very explainable because it's not just explained to the Board of Selectmen, but then we have to explain it to the town. So I'm hoping that's going to happen fairly. It couldn't get it done in time for tonight's meeting, but hopefully for our next meeting. And it could be a tide turner for the transfer station. Yes. Oh, I thought you were going to say something. So you're reaching for the on button.
So, Charles Tuttle and who else?
And Alan Ladd, our assistant foreman.
Okay, so are we talking about, did you say we're going to take them and we're going to put them at the transfer station checking stickers?
That's what we're hoping to move Charles Tuttle, who works for the highway garage.
Okay.
He's not assigned to the transfer station. Believe it or not, that's 2 different groups. They work different
Yep.
hours. The thought is to move Charles to there for at least the first 90 days to qualify people using this transfer station. And then after that, we'll decide whether we want to extend him for other time up
Okay.
there or 90 days is good enough.
And then how does that impact things that he would otherwise be doing? Taking him out of those duties, are we going to be looking at overtime?
No, he'll be reassigned. So it'll be a new position for him there for the time he's there, but he'll be coming off the highway garage and they'll just have to fill in behind him at the highway garage. And
Okay.
in the summertime is different than the wintertime.
He already works at the transfer station on Saturdays, so it would just be the, we're open Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So it would just be for those days reassigning him. I'm assuming Tuesday he would be still regular highway garage. But
Could be. I'm gonna let Donnie talk to us about how he wants to work that out, but I just think we do need presence at the transfer station.
Well, I think we heard that loud and clear from the town that if we're going to do this, we at least need to make sure that we have somebody there checking. I just wanted to make sure that in kind of borrowing him from the highway department, that we are not going to need to backfill any of his time with overtime. I mean, I personally am in favor of having, well, we'll see how the first 3 months go, but
Well, the idea, I think we decided the idea was to do sticker fees to help mitigate some of the rising costs of the transfer station, and the bulky waste fees, which we have not put on yet, to do two things. One is to put money towards the possible closure someday, but also make that closure come later in life, because if we're having less people come in, maybe the pile will last an extra 5 years.
Yeah.
So
And I think that that's what's important for the town to understand, that we're not just implementing a sticker fee to prevent out of towners from coming and dumping it. And, I think that many of them felt that they were being punished for being, the citizens of the town, and I'm coming and I'm dumping appropriately. But really it is to, I keep throwing a number out that to take care of that bulky waste pile. We have no idea how much it would be, but probably at this point, well over $1.5 million. We have nothing right now set aside for that.
25,000.
25,000, we just started. And then, trying to offset the costs. So there are increased costs. And I have to tell you, in reading the articles in the paper, I am scrutinizing everything that I'm putting in my recyclable and in my garbage now. And that somebody had said it, we are being paid for our recyclables. We are paying for our garbage. So I would love that to get out to the town as well. Because I think if more people did really truly focus on that, we would be recycling more, and our costs would be lower. But the sticker fee really is to offset some of the increased costs and to prepare for that bulky waste pile.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree 100%. We have to push the recycling a little more. Maybe that's something we could work out with our NIP fees NIP
That's a good idea.
deposits that we're getting back. Maybe we can try to implement something with that. But I also think a resident mentioned to me about the fees for the stickers, and that he had a good point that the stickers actually help pay for the tonnage, right? It doesn't pay for the operating of the transfer station. So when a lot of people have commented that they pay for it in their taxes, why is this an extra tax? Well, when he said that to me, and it makes perfect sense. So they're in our tax base is the operating of the transfer station. The sticker fee helps pay for your personal tonnage that you're utilizing at the transfer station. I think that's a good way to look at it on that, when we hear all the comments regarding, well, we already pay for it in our taxes, which I totally understand. But we do have to do something. And like I mentioned at the last meeting, I think ultimately, if we implement this and it works and we're enforcing it, we are also getting rid of that out of town waste that we can't enforce as well as we should be, because the sticker program hasn't been actively working great. So this will help change that and ultimately, hopefully, reduce the amount we're spending.
I think it's a great point. That I never thought of it the way that person explained it. That makes a lot of sense. We all pay for the operation, but personal tonnage gets paid by people who leave the tonnage there. Correct.
Correct.
So that's a great way to explain it. One thing we're gonna need to do is have a meeting, and maybe we start it tonight, but we have to come up with the logistics of where we sell the tickets. Where we talked about doing it at town hall, give people a voucher, go to the transfer station, and they have to be put on at the transfer station. How we would do two stickers per household. One would be paid and one would be free, but no more than two. Anything above that, we'd have to think about what that would cost. Also, are we gonna, like we do pistol permits, we do exact cash or check? Do we want to just do exact cash or check? Or do we want to do a credit card? And what is that? If we're able to do credit card, what does that mean? What do we have to do? I think Christine can explain some of that. If we want to use a credit card option, how does that work?
Yeah, so if we want to use a credit card, there's a setup charge to implement the system. It depends. I'm getting information from the two companies that we currently use. We use Point and Pay for our tax payments if people use credit cards, and then we use iWork for our building permits. So we're trying to see if we can use a system that we already have in place so that we can kind of try to get rid of some of the upfront costs that we would have. Point and Pay has $1,000 setup charge if we're going to use it. And then for the $40 sticker fee, the fee for using a credit card that the person would pay on top of the $40 would be $1.75. We would be able to use Point and Pay that they could just pay on their phone, and we wouldn't have, or on their computer at home. They wouldn't have to come to town hall to buy it, but then we would need to figure out, okay, well, what are they showing at the transfer station? You know, are they just showing on their phone that they've purchased it, and how are we verifying that? Or do they have to print something out? Some people don't have printers. So if we want to use their system, that's the way it would go. There's no way to track cash and check sales through their system. So we would still need to figure out how we're tracking the overall number of permits that we're selling. And then I have a meeting with iWork on Friday to get the information if we could do it through their platform.
Right, so nothing that we have to decide tonight, but we should think about it, and how we want to implement it going down the road. So if we want to discuss it at all tonight, we can.
$1,000.
That seems high for a setup fee to take cards.
And I
We
think,
might need to,
I thought we talked at the last meeting also that there's something else within the town hall that's set up with cash or check right now, right?
We can take cash and check right now, but we don't have, there's no software to track the sales. So we need to figure, which we don't have to have a software to do it. We can use pen and paper and figure out the way to do it. It doesn't need to be high tech. But if we wanted to have a credit card option, then we would need to figure out what platform to go through. So that's why we've approached the two platforms that we already use.
I do think we need to make it as convenient as possible for our residents, especially in the beginning, like we talked about, if there's a way for us to have a day up there where we're selling them in the first few weeks or something. I do think because of town hall hours and things like that, we really should make it as customer focused as possible.
Well, I thought that we kind of agreed that the first 3 weeks, the first 3 Saturdays, we would either, the three of us, or a combination of 2 of the 3 of us each week would work those to make it easier, maybe an 8 to 1 or a 9 to 1 shift. I think that one thing, we do a lot of pistol permits, and then pistol permit has to be exact, either $70 or cash. And we don't have any issues with that because people were told ahead of time, if we make a point to say, go by the ATM and pick up 2 $20 bills or bring in a check for $40, I don't think it's the end of the world. It may save us a lot of issues with the credit card, but I also want to make it easy as we can for the people in town. So I just don't know if that credit card option is making it that much easier, but if you can do it at home or in your phone and then come to the transfer station, that is easier. But then how do we read that and how do we do that at the transfer station? So it's definitely something we need to talk about. Okay, but we don't need to do it tonight.
Okay.
All right, great. So put that in your,
And I don't know what happened a couple of years ago or a number of years ago where we were going to implement a fee and then some people paid and then.
so I can give you the history because Mr. Mastriani looked it up for me because I needed it. So, because I got a call from someone that said, I paid my $60 and I never got it back. So I don't want to pay $40 this. I want to pay free this year and half a fee next year. So Brett, through his due diligence, looked it up, found out that we had a town meeting. I can't, was it 2011?
2011.
Town meeting. There was 3 questions. The first question was, should we vote to rescind the $60 fee? And the vote was positive. Yes. I think it was like 27 to 13 or something. Second vote, should we return the fees? The answer was no. Again, 27 to 13 or something.
So it was a
similar to that.
town meeting that they.
Town
that
meeting.
you
It was a
voted on?
petition originally that went to revoke the
And the,
fee.
and the third, it was, so the selectmen put it in, petition came up back then, the petition only needed 20 signatures. Came back in, went to a town meeting, they voted to get rid of the sticker fee, but not return the money. Question 3 was, if we return the money, how do we do it? They never got to that question because they didn't have to. So when I was able to reach this person through this information given to me by Brett and said, hey, I would need a town meeting to reverse a town meeting decision to give you the $60. My hands are tied. The town, this is a town meeting, formal government. I'm only a selectman. I don't have the power to override a town meeting by myself. So we need to have another second, and she's, never mind, I just paid $40. That's how that
That,
ended.
that's really interesting feedback. That's good. Thank you, Brett.
No
Hmm.
problem. It was 25 to 37. 25, yes, refund the money. 37 said no.
Interesting.
No.
Okay.
I didn't have the exact numbers, but I had the gist. Okay. Any other discussion tonight on transfer station bulk waste? Christine, is there anything else you want us to discuss on this before we move along?
The only thing that I wanted to see is if we were going to put a bulky waste revenue number into the budget, or since we don't have an idea yet.
Well, Don gave us an idea. We wanted to make sure we were well covered in that. Similar to we did the sticker fee. We think that could go anywhere between 30, 35, 40,000. I think we voted to put 25,000 in. Don was thinking that the bulky waste would be somewhere around 20,000. And I thought maybe if we put in 10,000, we know at least we're taking money in, we're covered, and I don't want to present something in the budget as revenue and then have it come back to us and say, you said 20, we only got 10. I'd rather go the other way. But when we get to the budget, I'm not opposed to adding revenue on that line to bulky waste because we've done it before. We took it out last year, but we've done it before.
Okay.
So,
I just want to make sure that there's no public comment on
Right.
the transfer.
no, perfect.
There's a hand up right now from Brian.
Okay, great. Brian, you are recognized.
Yeah, I definitely remember the the $60 fee one. I couldn't remember the other night, but I looked up my records because I was the one that brought the petition up. And I remember they also split that up into three parts. I thought it was going to be all voted on at one. But because of the way the town meetings were ran back then, they divided it into three. Well, after the first vote, a lot of people left. So it's not, I'd like to see it, revisited by the selectmen at a town meeting, because those people that paid the $60, it wasn't fair to them to pay that $60. And there was quite a few people, I guess, that did it. I didn't. I had to figure out how to get rid of my trash for a year, and I could do that again, but I'm probably not going to be, I'm not going to be really upset about the $40 because I know the transfer station has been taking a beating for years. So I'm kind of going along with you guys, but I would like to see the, at least, when you have a town meeting, maybe you can put that in there as a question for the people, see if they can return the $60 to the people that paid it years ago.
So Brian, I'm not going to argue, but if we did that, how would we find out who those people are? I mean, people have moved, they passed on, they might have paid it, they may not. There's no record. We have no record of who paid and who didn't. If I had a written record, it'd be fine. But do I just take everyone at their word that they paid $60? And suppose we have
No,
1,000
I believe they did. I believe they did have a record of it.
Did you
Somebody
say-
had a record of that, because I remember when they voted that night, I remember one of the Board of Finance members saying, boy, I'm so glad we voted that down because we don't know how we would have paid it back. Which I didn't understand why he said that, but
So I'll
they
tell you
must
what we
have had a
can do.
record of people somewhere, either up at the transfer station years ago or at the town hall.
So let's see, that was 15 years ago. So 13 years ago. Hold on, Christine.
So Brian, the town's only required to keep that type of record for 3 years. So we wouldn't have that anymore since it was from over 10 years ago.
3 years, that's it?
Yep. Those type of records are 3 years. Others are 7.
That's
But even
strange.
for 7, we're past that anyway. So I guess there's no way for me to, I guess I could take people at their word, but there's no way for me to prove that. And since it was done at a town meeting would have to reverse it. So I'm not saying it's not something we can address down the road, but it wouldn't be easy to address it and police it.
Okay. Just thought I'd try to get those people their money back, because I was the one that did the petition, and I felt bad because I thought it was all going to be voted on one question, but nobody, in fact, they weren't even going to recognize me that night That's the way the town meetings used to be run. That's,
I'm glad
you
they're a
know,
little.
and now at least they've gotten a lot better, that's for sure. So,
Thank-
okay,
thank
I'll
you.
be quiet.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Brett.
Okay, any other discussion on the transfer station? Okay, if not, we're gonna go into the budget part of this meeting. So in the budget, we know that we addressed the majority of the budget at our last meeting. Since then, we had 3 presentations. And we had 2 parts of the budget we couldn't come to a decision on, and we said we'd go back and revisit. So basically, there's 5 parts of this budget we need to address tonight. And then because it's our last meeting before we meet with the Board of Finance, I want to go back and have each selectman decide, is there something that you changed your mind on? Is there something that we took out, you want to add back in? Is there something you'd like to increase? Is there something we took out you think we should have taken out more? And then we can vote to have me bring this forward to the Board of Finance. I think it's on March 8th, if I'm not mistaken. But this is our last meeting before then. If you want to start with the 5 things, which is, we'll start with the 2 things that we tabled at the last meeting, and then we can move on to the 3 presentations that happened on the 15th. Sure, we can start with revenue. Revenue. Okay, so do we want to add a number in for the bulky waste? And do we think that the 10,000 number that I came up with, thinking, Donnie thinks it's going to be closer to 20, but again, I never want to put revenue that we can't guarantee in here. Is $10,000 enough to put in here as additional revenue? Do you want to make it a different number? How do you want to handle that? But I think we should put a number in for bulky waste.
What was Donnie's original figure?
He thought we'd be somewhere closer to 20,000. And that would be whether we use scales, which we're still investigating, or truckload, small, medium, large, extra large.
I think part of it is how confident are we that we are going to implement this, and what's the time frame to implement the
Well,
bulky waste side of
I
it?
think it starts.
Everything would start July 1st, I
July
would think.
1st.
Yeah, it's not, even if we're gonna go to scales eventually, we could start with the small, medium, large, extra large truck to start with until we get the scale set up. So we could start it the day we want to start it. And it's a selectman decision at this point.
I'm comfortable with 10. I don't think I'm comfortable with much more than
Right.
that.
I agree. Like we did with the sticker fee, I hate to overshoot and then have an issue. I'm comfortable with the 10 as well.
So we had a 5.02 bulky waste fee. There's already a line from last year that it was zeroed out. So we can just add it there. That's on second page of revenue. A 5.02 for 10,000.
For minutes purposes, can someone make a motion in a second?
I'll make a motion to add in for A 5.01. The
02.
Sorry, 02, the bulky waste fees, $10,000 for revenue for the FY 24 budget.
I'll
second.
Brett will second that. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Well, so what I asked Christine to do tonight is keep this as kind of living document tonight. So as we're making these adds and subtractions, we can get a final number before we decide if this is what we want to bring to the Board of Finance. So.
Just a question on that.
Sure.
Do you need to have a dump sticker to use the bulky?
Yes.
So if a resident doesn't utilize the transfer station on a regular basis, but they're cleaning out their house, or they have one thing where they need bulky waste, we're gonna make them get a sticker, even if it's for that one day, to use the bulky waste pile.
I think that's the way we can discuss and change our mind on that. But to me, the sticker is almost like the membership fee, right? It makes you a person that can use the transfer station. But if you 2 selectmen decide that you don't want to do that, we can amend that somehow. But I think that might open itself up to out of town people. At least we know if you have a sticker, you've already been qualified as being a town resident. So what if it opens up to people coming from out of town, out of state?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the bulky waste is where our liability is with out of town dumpers. So
Yeah,
if there's no sticker,
I agree. I just worry about the residents that are doing it on a Saturday, and now town if we're saying you have to go to town hall to get a sticker and they didn't get one, now, are they, some of the comments are, we're gonna see it on the side of the road.
Or they can store on the side of the garage like Andrew's tree fort has been sitting there for 2 years. And I eventually, after we get bulky waste fee, that's when I'll bring it back to.
I think we have to think, and it's not for this discussion, but we have to think long and hard about how much we communicate and offer opportunities to come get the sticker,
Right.
because we've got to we have to let that resident know that if they're just doing a renovation and they're going to come, they're not going to be able to if they don't have a sticker. We have to make sure that we're communicating.
I agree, Nicole.
Maybe after the first month or 2 months, then we do have them for sale at the transfer station because it'll be a trickle in of people
Right.
rather than hundreds of people buying them all at
Yeah.
the same time.
Yeah, I think that's a
Good idea.
Good idea.
Yeah, and if we're going to have Charles Tuttle there and they come for the day, no sticker, but they have bulky waste and they have a license and clearly they have something to prove they're a North Stonington resident, then I think that getting it for the day and paying is
So they would have to have
appropriate.
proof of,
They would, I mean, really, if you're driving your car, you should have a license with, if you're a resident, you should have a license with your address on it, but
But how often is someone, how likely is somebody really only going to go to the transfer station one time? I don't take my trash to the transfer station in Westerly, but I've gone at least 6 times to bring other things.
yeah, well,
Right. I just, that might be right, but the one time that it happens,
I know.
so I would think we'd be able to also have printouts of property, right? Isn't that what they did before? They had like the booklet of,
we have
People
the
with
sheets, same
property.
sheets we used when we passed out COVID tests.
Yeah.
That we kept track of. So if they have a license and they're on that sheet. But also the rule is the material has to come from North Stonington.
Yeah.
So sometimes we look at building permits. If it's a tree fort, there's no building permit. But if it's sheet rock and it's the kind of material that goes into a new home installation, you want to know it's coming from North Stonington.
right? Because I think some people were concerned about contractors from town that are doing work outside of town, bringing that stuff back. I know those were a lot of the comments that you.
So I think
Thoughts?
maybe on a future non-budget driven meeting, we can have a transfer station driven meeting and make it our main focus.
Right. Sounds good.
Okay, so again, Christine's keeping track of this tonight, so we'll have a bottom line number at the end of the night with a percentage and so on. Okay, anything else on revenue? No. Okay, none at this time. Moving into the next phase, which is the page 3. Board of Selectmen budget, we knew that we put on hold some I had at the last meeting requested increases in pay on certain individuals in town hall, non-union individuals. There was discussion and I had them at a 10% increase on the accounting generalist, the admin finance director, and the town clerk. Selectman Mastriani had similar numbers except in one area. He felt that the accounting generalist had warranted a smaller, I think he said at the time, 5%. Nicole, I think you said you want to go back and look into it more and come back to us with an answer. So have you had a chance to look at it?
Yeah, so I specifically for the admin and finance officer, I did some research and certainly this, I saw figures and I know that it differs based on because the range was huge that I was looking at, but it was really 73,000 all the way up to 160, depending on the type, the size of the town and the scope. So when I look at 78 for the 21-22 budget and then 8, so the bottom line is I am comfortable with 92.
So
Knowing-
that was a 10%.
That was, yeah, I am comfortable with that based on the research that I did and looking at ranges.
Okay. Do we want to address these one at a time and then
Yeah.
vote them on that way? Yeah.
I think that's
Okay,
best,
so-
that they're separate positions.
Okay, so I will motion that we do a 10%. I'll do the motion that we'll discuss. I'll do a motion that we raise the admin finance director officer rather by 10% in their pay.
So I just, before you guys do anything, the number represented in the budget are the 15% numbers, not the 10%
Right.
numbers.
Correct. So it would actually be lower than that.
Okay. Can somebody do the math really quick?
The 10% on that would be 88,194.
So Bob, you made the motion for the 10% at the 88 thousand
194.
one. Yeah, I will second that.
All right, discussion.
As I said at that last meeting, that is the one position that I did see that range, and it's a similar range. Like I said, I looked at towns from within 1,000 people of us, less and more, and also budgets that were similar. And the range was the same as Nicole saw. I do worry about the optics of it, compared to the union employees and what they've gotten and see that, but I think,
Well, we don't have any, we can't control that right
Correct.
now.
but it could affect us at next go round, but I would be comfortable with the 10% right now,
Okay,
because I do think that role is at the lower end of the spectrum.
okay, so all in favor of increasing the B 1.13 admin and finance officer compensation to the 88,194, which is 10% increase.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next, accounting journalist. Again, that's the number you're looking on your version 3 is that the 15%. In this particular case, Nicole, I think you were going to investigate this also.
I did most of my investigation with the admin and finance. But I just, in general, knowing what's out there, I'm again comfortable. So is that 71,918 is 15%?
Yes, so
So can we just have the 10%?
So the 10% on that would be 68,791.
Yeah, so that's like unheard of nowadays. So, and I know that trying to chase the wages in the market right now is like trying to hit a moving target, but I'm comfortable with the 68 and change.
okay, I've thought about this more. I've done some additional investigating on my own. I'm not totally opposed to what Brett's thinking was on this, because again, I did the research. I think Brett, you were at 5, correct?
I was at 5 because the ranges that I saw, based on the budgets and the town size, were 40 to 60. As 60 was the max that I saw for this position. And I did look to see if there were assistants and other titles along in those departments at these other towns. So I think we're already in that range and we're at the high end of that range. And that's why I suggested the last one, the 5%.
Christine, if we went 5, what would that number be?
5 would be 65,664.
Okay, all right, trying to be fiscally correct on this and looking at since I've done the research, once you've done it, you can't unsee it, right? So I know what it is. I think a 5% is still twice as much as the ranking file person at town hall is getting a 2.5% increase. So we're still doubling that. So we're showing that there's appreciation for that position and then bringing it up a notch, but not bringing it all the way up to the 10. So I wouldn't be opposed to doing a 5 in this particular line item.
So I'd like to make the motion to increase it to 5%.
I'll second that.
Okay. So we have a motion first and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Lastly, in this arena that we're speaking about is the town clerk's position. Brett, you've done some research on this. Did you do any additional research on this, Nicole?
I did not on that one.
So Brett, can you just refresh our memory on?
Yeah, so looking at, like I said, similar towns, it looks like we are on the lowest end of that spectrum. They range from about 50 to about 75. So I do think on this one, we are at the lowest end of that spectrum. So I personally think we need to bump that up. That person is super responsible in the office. They also are responsible for maintaining so many things on a daily basis of how we function in town hall, that I think it's very important, because that knowledge is unreplaceable when it comes to knowledge of some of the election stuff, the statutes that we deal with. So I'd like to see an increase.
And the number you're looking at is a 2.5% increase. It's on there now. So Christine, would you give us a 10% increase on that?
So the 10% on the town clerk would be 57,917.
57,970,
17,917.
917. Got it.
And what were your ranges? 40 to what? 40 to 60?
50 to 70.
Oh, 50 to 75. How many? Oh, well.
And the 15% increase, since you don't see that in the budget, would be 60,550.
Is it? I'm thinking of, it's a tough one, because we know we're looking at the budget and final dollars.
If we kept those three changes to the two we voted on, the 10 and the 5, because originally were 15 in the budget. This was a 2.5, we'd be going up to 10. We'd be knocking $6,313 off the budget by doing that. By going from 15 to 10, 15 to 5, 2.5 to 10. It knocks $6,313.
I'm comfortable with the 10. The 10 was 50. The 10 was 50.
57,917.
Okay.
I was looking at 8, just to maybe a little this year, a little next year, but I'm comfortable with whatever you guys
And I'm comfortable with the 10 also. Okay, so can I entertain a motion for that?
make a motion to increase the town clerk 10%.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 I'm sorry, who was the second on that?
So again, with that, thinking that might be the scenario, I calculated it's about a $6,300 savings by doing that over what we originally had, because we originally had 15, 2.5. Okay. The next thing we tabled was if we can go over to the fire company and the capital. So at the meeting, if I remember right, we agreed to buy a service truck and go from an F-350 down to an F-250, and the number was $45,000. It decreased. But then we spoke about, we had a presentation on a ladder truck, and we discussed that there's going to be a rescue truck refurbished coming up to the tune of about $300,000 to $350,000 somewhere down the road. And there was a thought about, should we do a general line, call it fire apparatus, and put money in that line? I spoke to the treasurer about this because I went through the budget with him. And his concern was, if you have a line that says fire apparatus and not actually a ladder truck or a service truck, the town loses the say on what vehicle is bought. He felt it should be either you put money towards a ladder truck if that's what the town thinks you want, or put it towards the refurbishing of the R1 rescue truck if that's what the town wants. But to just put a general fire apparatus that could be used for pretty much anything kind of takes away from the town a little bit as far as the decision making of what truck we'll be using, what truck the money will be used for. So I'm saying I don't saying I agree or disagree with that philosophy, but I thought I'd bring it to you to have you discuss it.
So we couldn't make it where we'd still have to go to a town meeting on it.
We could, but once it's in the budget, it says fire apparatus. Why would they have to? There's nothing else in
Because
the
it's
budget.
now you're purchasing the item out of that line.
Is there any history of us doing that? No, I can't
Unless we
remember.
made an ordinance based on it like we did for the open space.
Hmm.
Um,
So what you could do is, so we did in the highway department, if you remember, we just recently took money out of one vehicle and moved it over to another vehicle. There was, money left over, wasn't there, in a truck that we were gonna, I guess it's in the rolling floor, it's the rolling walking floor trailer. We put 45,000 in. Let's say that the highway garage does this presentation in a couple of weeks and decides that they're gonna go a different route, get rid of the walking floor trailers, and now we have 45,000 in there. Could we then appropriate that money out of that line and use it for a different vehicle or not?
You'd have to ask at a town meeting because it's already in a set budget. It's not the upcoming budget that they're voting on. So you would have to deobligate that money and create a new
Right,
project.
so that's what I'm saying, so there is a process. So if we did put this money towards, let's say, the $350,000 refurbishing, and the chief comes and says, hey, I got this ladder truck that it's a steal, I can get it, it's gonna cost the town X. Can we then go to a town meeting, like you just said, and say, can we deobligate that money and then put it back toward another truck?
That's all versus doing the,
General line of
General
apparatus
of
and have
apparatus.
them spend it on whatever truck they want to spend it on.
So, I mean, if we're allocating a certain amount of money and we are a little bit more general on that particular line item, then I would think that the fire department would have to make the best decision at the time and use it to what it's really needed for. So we're kind of giving them the opportunity to choose what they need it most for. I don't know if I'm necessarily opposed to that.
No, neither am I. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. I
Yeah.
had the discussion and it makes sense to me both ways, but then who knows more about the need in the trucks than the fire
Than
company,
them,
right?
yeah.
the only thing I worry about with that is if we get into a scenario where they utilize it, and then the next year they're like, well, now we do have to do that refurbishment. But we saw that good deal on the ladder truck, and there's nobody else having to okay it, whether it's the Board of Selectmen or the town at a meeting. And then now we're on the hook to come up with that other extra. Because they're a separate entity, I think there should be some checks and balances if we do make a general line item for it.
If they're gonna come back to the town for additional money to pitch in for the remainder of the cost, doesn't that have to come back to?
Are they pitching or are they gonna ask the town for the balance of the cost?
Well, if they're pitching in, then have at it. But if they're gonna ask the town, then does it not have to go to a town meeting?
It does, but I'm saying if they use it on the ladder truck and then all of a sudden there's the need for that rescue truck to be refurbed, and that's something they utilize all the time, how it could
Yeah.
put us in a tough situation. If we just say that money's for them to make whatever choices they want with it, I worry about that a little bit.
So we know that the chief said they have a refurbishment coming up in a couple of years, year or two. We know it's one of their most important trucks is the R1 rescue truck. What if we put money toward that, knowing that if they get the deal of a lifetime with a ladder truck, then we could go to a town meeting, deobligate that if the town agrees and put it towards the ladder truck. But at least there'd be a conversation going on. There'd be dialogue between the Board of Selectmen, the town, and the fire company when that happened. But I would like to put some money toward some truck, unless we decide to change our mind and take the service truck for 45,000 out of the equation at this point. Not buy that truck, which we voted to do, but we can vote to take it out and then put money towards a ladder truck and the one for ladder, one for refurbishing of the R1. So to me, there's three things on the table, 3 trucks on the table. One of them is actually not here because Chief let us know it's something he needs in the near future, and we know it's one of the most expensive trucks they run. So with that said, do we want to we can either we can rethink. To me, we're looking, we got to put money towards 2 of these 3 vehicles. We don't have enough money to put down money towards all 3 of these vehicles.
So are you thinking, get rid of the ladder truck designation and make that the rescue truck?
That would, I think that
Put money
we
towards it.
know, they've never had a ladder truck. Not that they don't need one, because they probably do eventually. We know they need a rescue truck. The R1 goes out all the time, so we know they need that. So why wouldn't we put money toward that refurbishing? Knowing that that's something they're gonna definitely have. And if there's a process, it seems that there is a process that if they find a ladder truck that makes a lot of sense, the chief can come to the Board of Selectmen, we can go to a town meeting and see if we can de-obligate the money or monies toward that, or just take money out of the undesignated fund if the Board of Finance allows. So there's a process, but I think I would like to stop putting money towards the refurbishing because he told us that's gonna happen.
I agree.
I agree as well.
Can I just make one process
Sure.
comment? If he finds that there is a truck that's a good deal, it's going to take us over a month to have the Board of Selectmen vote to make this change, the Board of Finance vote to make this change, the Board of Selectmen to vote to have a town meeting, and the town meeting to happen. So if we're talking about needing to do something somewhat quickly and there being a good deal, I don't know that that timeline would match up with that.
So that's part of the beauty of a small town is we have a process, and the process keeps checks and balances, keeps everybody in line and make sure we're doing it the right way. Possibly the fire company with their funds, if they had funds, and I think they do have some, they could put some sort of a down payment, maybe a refundable down payment on a truck, knowing that, hey, it's going to take us 30 days to get town approval, but we want this truck, so we'll put X number of dollars of our money down, and that can be repaid through an appropriation from the town. But I think as far as taking the process, and I remember someone in the Board of Finance once said, there's always time to do things right. And I think this is the case where we need to do it right. So is the chief online? No, he's not.
I
Okay.
keep looking too, no.
All right. Let me ask Charlie Smith, have you listened to this whole discussion? Would you like to make a comment? You don't have, if you do, you have to go up there though.
I can bring the mic to you. You stay.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Brad will bring it to you. I'm only asking because of obviously Charlie's years of service in the fire company, so.
I hear what you're saying about it,
That's not on,
I guess. Is it on? You hear me?
no.
Yeah, I understand about the reefer for the rescue truck, and you're right, Bob, but that's a truck that goes all the time. Well, that-
Hold on, Charlie. It's not on.
There we
it
go.
is. All right. Thank you.
I agree with you on the rescue reefer. Then probably about 2 years and let them do that.
Yes.
They've been talking. The reefer would give you another 10 years on the rescue. That's the way they continue improving operation, like they did years ago. The ladder, sure, be nice to have, but we got ladder trucks all around us.
But the chief did do a presentation. I understand that the truck he's looking for is what he called a quint, which is a 75-foot ladder versus the bigger truck. The bigger trucks can hit most of the buildings on Route 2 and the major buildings, but can't get down back roads. I think that was the thought
My
process.
question would be on that, if you purchase fucking truck, so-called, at 75. Are we replacing the truck up there, or are we adding fleet?
The response was
Would be my
adding to the
question.
fleet.
Yeah, we asked that question, Charlie.
Big companies, got their tank, this water brand new tank, 600. That would be.
And those are the questions we asked, and we got answers at our last meeting. So, yeah, but that's okay. I mean, it's good to ask them. It would be adding to the fleet. And the truck it would be removing would be the engine 2, which would be parked in the back building. But then if it goes into the back building, that would have to be equipped with heat in
Yeah,
that bay.
That was another part of my
Gonna
concern.
add to the fleet. That means, so one of these other trucks would have to go in the back building, if you put up. You did that just 2 years ago.
Right.
You're gonna have to heat that building, and have to close the building, and there's no heat out. There's a bigger picture. It's
Right, and we asked them about additional cost, so even to what color the ladder truck had to be. So we went through a lot of questions about this, but I appreciate your input and I agree. I think the rescue truck is the most important truck at this point because it's already in the fleet.
at the time of the town where it stands. Highway equipment stuff, again, I can understand. But them guys do a good job up there. We need those guys. They do a good job for us.
And we want them to be as
But we
equipped
gotta-
as possible.
They need to stay safe. That's the most important thing. Safety is number one.
Thank you.
Keep them safe.
Thank you very
Whatever's
much.
best, but the thing to go around. I have a lot of respect for those guys. I dealt with their grandfathers. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for
Thank you,
coming.
Chair. So I'm comfortable. Did we make a motion yet?
Not yet. We're still discussing, but you can make one.
So, and what was the dollar amount that we're? gonna
We
put in?
tossed around a $50 and a 50,000 and a $75,000 number. 75 was what was on here for the ladder truck.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to put that 75,000 that is currently in C3.53, the ladder truck, to put that towards the rescue refurb. Does that have its own line item or no?
It doesn't.
What we'll do is we'll change that line item because it hasn't been officially voted into anything. So C 3.53 will become NSVFC rescue truck refurb.
And we know there's a process that
Yes.
if he gets a
Yep.
killer of a deal, we can go through a process.
Yep.
Correct?
And I,
Well,
okay,
I'll second it for comment
Oh, sorry,
purposes.
yep.
go ahead. No,
Okay, you
Um,
seconded.
I'm more comfortable with 50,000. I think we talked about that briefly at the last meeting. So if we're breaking it out over time for the refurb,
what did he say the refurb was?
350,000.
350?
We
So
know
we're
that-
not gonna make it up in the next, he thought it was gonna need to be done in 2 years.
It would give us a head start, but it's,
Yeah.
obviously 75 won't get us there either. But, and Christine's gonna run the numbers at the end of this, so if we find that we have to, if the numbers aren't where we want them to be with a total increase in the budget, we might have to come back and cut some more.
I mean, looking at this, if we were to put 75 in that line item, then maybe we break up the service truck to 2 years. Half this year, half next year. Because that's a truck that they just brought to our attention that they'd like replaced. And the amount of use that it gets, I think if we break that up, then I'm comfortable with the 75 and the other.
So leave 75 in that and,
Change 45 to 25 in the service truck. I'm not opposed. I think that's a good idea,
yeah, I
actually.
think that's a good idea too.
So the motion,
Do I have to amend it? Are we gonna do
No,
the
she's-
service truck separately, or do you want to just do the ladder truck line item?
Yeah,
right
we'll do
now?
that separate. So your motion was good.
Yeah,
because
so
you
the
did
motion
75.
was to keep it at 75, but change it from C 3.53 from ladder truck to the R1 refurb.
I second.
okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 So then I'll make another motion on C 3.54. The service truck to drop that to 25,000.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of dropping the North Stone Volunteer Fire Company service truck from 45,000 to 25,000, say aye.
Aye.
Well, we're not really dropping it.
We're just,
We're at, because this budget hasn't been approved.
no, but, right, we're just gonna change it. We're gonna change it. Okay. So that's where we were when we had to go back and revisit. So now we have the three presentations, three presentations from the 15th. Since we have people here from the library, what if we worked on the library first? Would that be okay?
Yep.
So as we know, the library did a presentation. They originally had asked for $155,000 in the budget, and that was dropped during the presentation to 120. Last year, the library was at 65,000, I believe. I know it's on the miscellaneous because that's what Amy Kennedy told me I could find it. Miscellaneous 3.30.03. It was 65 2 years ago, 65 last year. I think last year they came in at maybe an 80 or an $85,000 ask, and it got cut back to 65. So this year it's at 120. I think we all understand how important the library is to the town. I think it's when you look at the 4 or 5 things that make this town what it is, the library ranks up right up there and towards the top. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I think it's the library and the fair and Jonathan Edwards Winery, and you can go on. There's about 4 or 5 things that really make our town what it is. Hewitt Farm, the village, open space, but the library ranks there as towards the top. I think we're doing a disservice to if we don't give them a sizable increase over last year. My feeling is to give them a $35,000 increase over last year and bring them up to a $100,000 mark, and I would entertain discussion on that.
I agree, they're a valuable resource to the town, and I do think they deserve and need a increase. I was looking at 85,000, what I had written down, because we did go from 30,000 in, I think, 2020, or 2019, 2020 to 50,000, right? And then up to 65,000. So it's been considerable. We had a considerable one. And I do think we need to get them to where they need to be, but I worry about this year, a huge increase. Knowing the budget that we're looking at, and also listening to the Board of Ed's budget. And I know they're still working on theirs, but I worry about where we end up overall. But I do agree, we need to give them a decent increase, and that's why I thought 85 was sizable, but not over the top. That's just my.
Thank you. No, Nicole?
Am I correct, Christine, on page 6? Am I correct in looking at that total general government spend? And is there any way that you can run some really quick numbers with the edits that we've already made? It looks like our change, the original, before we voted on making some of the changes tonight, we were going up by 302,000 and change. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, so now it's going up 295,976.
295,976, and that is with the 120 for the library?
Yes.
And that's with the decreases to payroll
Yes.
and, well,
Not to capital, because capital's in a separate category.
okay,
This is,
exactly, okay.
this is just the
Got
operating.
it. Excuse me, I was thinking the capital too. Sorry about that. What's the new capital number?
The new capital number is, we're only going up 131,765.
Okay, thank you.
I would actually, I know that the 3 of us are like all going to be all over the place, but I would be comfortable dropping it just 10,000 to 110,000. So that would 295,976.
That would bring you to 285,976.
Thank you. That is why you do what you do and I do not. One more time, I'm sorry.
285,976 for the overall increase on general government.
Yeah, I think with everything going on right now, with inflation only increasing our budget by 285 is not, that's acceptable to me. Granted, I think that we are going to be challenged with the Board of Ed and just listening to their meetings. And I know that they're not done, but
So when you say our budget, don't forget the Board of Finance is gonna look at our budget as not only capital operating, government operating, but also capital. So when you add those two together, what's that number? So before we started this evening, it was 454.
So now the total increase is 427,772. So if you reduce the library by 10, that would be 417,772.
I guess what I'm thinking is if
But
we,
that's
ahead.
also with, well, no, that's not with the increased revenue.
right,
Right. 'Cause
So-
I do worry about we do have increased revenue this year, but what happens next year? And do we see that, especially on the property taxes? That we see, but I also do want to mention that listening to the presentation, if we could put them somewhere else in the budget under
I
compared to
agree. Other
miscellaneous,
than miscellaneous.
I don't know
I
where.
agree.
And I also think that if we can work with them more on the grant writing side with our resources. I did see that other libraries in the state got some money from the state and from the federal government through their towns, working with their towns and their representatives. So I do think we should utilize our grant writer and try to help with that as well. So I think the multi-prong approach to some of this.
Do you
not
guys
just
have
one.
your own grant writer or no? That's a good idea.
Because we have one, and I know we lowered the budget a
I
little
was
bit
gonna say,
on it.
we've cut that budget in half.
But if there's one that will help the library, help the town, help the residents, and help our taxes, I think we need to work with them on that side.
So I mean, when I sent you, grant information, did you had no one that could work on that for you? Okay.
And it's such a specialized.
Okay, so
process.
okay, so because you didn't have a microphone, I'll just say, so what the answer we received is you don't have a grant writer. That was actually a position that was cut. And you could use help from the town when it comes to grant writing. So, thank you. As far as where to put them, I hate to say there's really nowhere else in this budget than,
They're not a town department.
Right.
We're donating to them in essence. So.
Well, then can they not go where the other?
They're not a social service.
No.
No, I mean, honestly, keeping North Stonington affordable shouldn't necessarily be in social services. It should be in miscellaneous. And if you guys want me to make that change, we can make that
We just
change.
changed the title of miscellaneous. It does sound like, I never realized it until it was said at the
Yeah.
meeting. It seems like,
I'll take recommendations.
okay.
well, that's something we can work on later. but,
Yeah.
So Nicole's at 110 and I was at 100. And again, 100 is a $35,000 increase. 110 is a $45,000 increase. And Brett, I believe was at, did you say 85, Brett?
I was at 85.
Okay, which is a $20,000 increase. I think the library's changed a lot in the last few years. I think they've had more outreach. They're hitting more people than they had when I first moved to town 20 years ago. Back then, libraries were basically libraries. Libraries aren't libraries anymore. They're all facets. They everything from after school to youth programs to adult programs to social functions. As we know, it's a big part of our town. I'm afraid that if we come in with a budget that's over 5%, the Board of Finance is going to throw it back at us, and we're going to have to do more cutting. I'd rather have them just give it back to us and say they're fine with everything we gave them, and there's no more cutting necessary. But with that said, I'd love to have tonight come in with something that's under 5%. So my opinion is that my thought again was put this at 100, drop it to 20,000, because that will go into a drop out of the government operating budget. And there's another area, we still have two other areas to look at, rec and ambulance. There might be some more money coming out of that before we go through the budget, if there's any other changes, but I'm leery that if we come in with a 5% increase or higher, the Board of Finance is going to look at that and say we didn't do what we were supposed to do.
Where are we right now?
Before this
If we
evening,
left it at 120,
Right now, the increase on government operating is 5.56%. The total is 1.98% with the capital and the government operating.
I know also that the Board of Finance is looking at this as they saw the additional revenue number, which Darrell gave us that night, and we added that number, 2.5% to the grand list added to the monies coming in from the school, from the tuition students. We came up to a little over $600,000. The Board of Finance is looking at that $600,000 and saying, okay, Board of Selectmen, Board of Education, figure out how you two combined can do everything you want to do for $600,000. We know that the Board of Ed budget's going to be higher, and if we're already at 454 as the night started, that doesn't give the Board of Ed much room. So I'm thinking anything we can do to lower our budget a little bit more than we have already makes sense to me. But I think $100,000 library number is a good one, but I will, if we can come to an agreement of some other number, I'll go there.
I think that I would rather not that I don't want to prolong the entire season and the process, but I think that I would rather be told at this point, you need to cut it rather than giving them something that we've already slashed.
Okay. If that's the case, then what we should do is make a series of motions until one passes. So we have 3 different numbers. So Nicole, if you'd like to start, and if that passes, we'll end it there. If not, we'll go to me. If that doesn't work, we'll go to Brett, or whatever method you want to use. But we have to come to a decision, a number to go on this paper tonight.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to drop the library from 120,000 to 110,000.
Do I hear a second?
I'm sorry.
Okay, hearing no second, then the motion fails. I will make a motion that the library budget gets.
I can't redo my motion
Oh,
to 105.
you could.
Go ahead, make your motion.
All right, so I will make a motion that the library gets increased from 65,000 to 100,000, which is a $35,000 increase. Bring them up to a total of $100,000 in this year's budget.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a first and we have a second. Any discussion?
I think at this point that I do agree with Nicole. I don't agree at her dollar value.
Your time to agree with me is now gone.
But I do agree that, we have to make tough decisions, and we're doing the best we can with this, with the information in front of us, that I'm comfortable sending it to the Board of Finance with that number in there,
With what
with
number?
Bob's number.
With 100?
It's more than I'd like to see in there. But I'm comfortable sending it.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor of changing the library budget to request to 100,000, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. It's okay. We don't always have to
I know.
agree, All right, so that's it. So, yes, Christine.
Before you start talking about any other line items, we have the draft number from the assessor as far as the grand list. March starts the process for the Board of Assessment Appeals and any adjustments that need to happen. So I don't want anyone to be set on the grand list number. It is subject to change. It will change. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind that we will have a new number by the end of March, and then that will be the number we're using to set the mill rate.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So next, let's go to the ambulance, if that's okay.
What page are we on?
That would be in 20B. What?
B 26.12 on page 4.
B 26.12. Okay, we heard the ambulance presentation. He was asked for a $250,000 in his budget request. last year, they asked for 250,000. We carried that number in the budget, and then through a series of meetings I had with the ambulance association, they dropped that number down to 207,000. I know they've come a long way in adding calls. They're making pretty much close to, I think they're making 100% of the calls with the first ambulance and most of the calls with the second. They brought in some full-time employees and some per diems. And overall, they're doing a really good job. However, I think if if the true number was in the budget, what they got last year, which is 207 and not 250, then increasing them to 225 is still an increase. And I think that's the number we should be at, and not 250. But we can discuss that a little more, or we could, actually, why don't I make a motion and we can see if there's a second, we'll discuss it then. So I motion that we drop the North Stonington Ambulance Association budget from 250 down to 225.
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion.
Did we get an answer regarding that revenue, that huge revenue decrease that they expected?
The revenue decrease?
Yeah, there was, I can't find my paper with that where I wrote it down. There was a decrease where I roughly wanted to say it dropped about $14,000 on what they thought they would bring in billing.
I don't remember that.
I don't either, but
Yeah,
I
and
know
he
that
said he didn't know where that number came from, and they would find out and get it to us.
I don't remember that either, but I do know.
Do you have that? Chris?
So there was a special line in there just called proposed income. That was 19,000 in 23 and then was 4,000 in
Yeah,
24.
that's the,
And that Logan didn't know what it was. And I don't know that any of them knew really what it was.
I do know in
I
the
think it was
governor's
just trying to
budget,
balance budget.
in the governor's budget, one of his requests is to raise the fees when ambulances go out. And if that gets approved, they will have additional income through that.
yeah, but that was,
also.
the insurance reimbursement, I think, was separate than that one.
That's a different number, right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's a different revenue stream that's gonna go up if the governor's budget passes, so.
Do we have any idea where because that 207 that they had is not all that they use, right? Do they, like the fire company, have? No?
They do. They
Yeah.
have a savings. They also have a building they own on Maine's Crossing that is still in litigation. They're trying to get the deed restriction off that building so they could sell it. I think they've taken have they taken all their funds from this year? They're just the first portion?
They've just taken the first portion for the year. And I think they bring in almost as much as they get from the town in their billings. And since they've switched billing companies, now they're supposed to have a better percentage that they're getting, and overall, they're supposed to be
Yeah.
collecting more.
I'm comfortable with the 225.
Yeah, especially if their calls are up that they're responding to, that means increased revenue and.
Yeah.
what
I
they're
think
getting.
before they were making 7-8% of the calls, and now they're making 100% on their first one. So right there is an increase in revenue,
Yeah.
correct? If you're not making a call, you're not getting paid, so. All right, so then I made a motion. There was a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of changing the number B 26.12, also the Ambulance Association, from 250 down to 225, say aye.
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 Aye. Yeah. And last is recreation. Does anybody want to jump into that one?
What page?
It's the bottom of page 3, top of page 4, B16 is the overall category.
Now with recreation, a big chunk of that comes back in program.
Correct.
Yes, most of it. So when
Honestly, about half of it. So they bring about $80,000 in. They spend less than that in program expenses, but that doesn't include the director's salary.
Right.
It doesn't, the camps and officials are helped to be offset by the program expenses, but their fees are at a reasonable rate for our residents to participate, not trying to make any revenue.
Right. So the summer camp is the only one that they don't break even on, really.
The
Take the
basketball,
administrator.
the basketball program, the soccer program and the summer camp program don't have a one-to-one corresponding revenue to expense offset. Because it's, 10 kids on a team and then we're signing up for league fees and we have officials and there's different things that fall into those 3 programs.
Okay.
Everything else is someone says they want to teach art or yoga or have a volleyball clinic and it costs $50 for the person to sign up and then the instructor gets paid $50.
And then we have the events like the Easter egg hunt, the light parade, things like
Yes.
that. There's no income coming at all for that.
Yeah.
That's just something that they
Yes,
do.
Good clarification. Thank you.
And did you implement the cleaning fee or the service fee of using the building? I know that was a discussion.
We are still, yes. Okay. So the groups that use the building, there is an additional administrative fee built into it. But that just went into effect for, I think January.
So
So
will
there-
that offset any other fees?
So that will help to cover administrative expenses and, rec center expenses for operating. But it's not gonna be a huge
Right.
moneymaker.
And I'll bring this up every time we talk about rec, we still have to
Oh
figure
my
out
God.
what we're
doing
gonna
with
do
that.
with that building. If we're gonna continue to utilize it long-term, it needs help.
Agreed. And there's money in capital that has not been spent yet, and there's money earmarked for town-owned property in this year's capital. So that's considered town-owned property, correct?
Brett's talking of major upgrades.
Oh.
The capital money we have is just for a hood for the kitchen and a construction of an office in the building. But if we're looking at roof, HVAC, any,
I'm thinking off the
substantial.
bat, HVAC is something needed. When you're in there and there's kids in there and that the heat kicks on, I mean, you can't even talk to somebody else in there. I actually stopped to talk to Tom about the farmer's market the other day. And we're sitting out there and he's working on the computer, the heat kicks on. I mean, I can barely talk to him right there. So I do think if we're gonna utilize that, we need to plan.
Well, once the demolition's done and the budget's done and the transfer sticker fees are all figured out, we're not gonna have anything to do. So we should tackle that whole recreation building head on and decide, 'cause it's not our building.
That was gonna be my next comment. Like, how much can we do with it at this point? Because we don't technically, is it a town owned? It's not a town.
It's not a town owned. It's owned by the fire company.
So
and
I
we have
don't-
a 15-year lease.
Yeah,
So
so
they have to approve
Yeah.
whatever we do there.
So I guess the
with
thought would be,
town funds,
if we take them out of there though, where do they go? That's
if
the,
we take the
if we
rec.
wreck out of that building, where do they go?
Well, I mean, I know that no, I don't know. And I know that they like that
That
location because it's close to the rec fields and close to everything, but the building is, God,
Charlie, did you want to say something? If you do, you need to use the microphone though. Sorry. I let Amy and Kate off the hook, but
Let me just tap it.
Yeah, there you go. No, but seriously, that building was put up by a bunch of farmers. And folks that served the town for 75 years up there. And of course, the trucks got bigger and bigger, and that's why you ended up with a new building. But that recreation building is pretty sound. The last addition was put on it in 1970. And we started in 1947 is when we did the first original building. 30 by 50 that was. And then we did Barker Hall, that was 30 by 55. Then we did the other small addition for engine number 1, the first new truck we ever had in 1960. We put that on, and with the ladies auxiliary raised all the money for that. And the last building was put on in 1970, and that was 30 by 55. And the volunteers paid for that entire building from the get-go. Just want to bring it up. You brought up about the farmer's market. That made me think. There was a bunch of us farmers that put that together.
And we didn't mean, we're not like trying to throw the building under the bus or anything. It's a great building. It's a great location for rec.
It
But it's
is.
also 60, the last edition went on in the 70s, you said, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so
just
that's almost
needs-
60 years ago.
so much
The building-
updating.
I'm sorry.
It just needs so much updating
Yeah,
for what
the
it's
building-
currently
the
being used
building is
for.
Obsolete, believe me.
Yeah.
But do me a favor, I haven't got many years left. And most of the people I work with up there on that building, they're gone. Tear it down after I leave.
Oh, we're not gonna,
Oh, we're
not
not
even
tearing
thought
it
of that.
down. We want to redo it because it is a perfect location for
You can't-
the rec.
You can now, young lady, with the regulations the way they are. I'm not sure you.
But-
The bang for the buck would be to tear it down and start from scratch.
Yeah,
I
I don't,
shouldn't say that, but that's
No, but
the laws.
I don't think we're looking to do that. I think we're just looking to put some money into it to make it a little bit more.
Let's talk about these kids with dealing with their grandfathers. I don't want-
well, I think,
If it wasn't for them,
There'd be nothing.
I think before we tear it down, we'll make it into a fire museum. How's that? It could, it would work, right? Thank you.
Rick mentioned the farmers, I had to come.
Thank you. All right, so, again, that would be something we should. Not that we're gonna look for something to do after we do all the other things, but it could be something we
Yeah,
should spend some
need
time
to.
on.
We've talked about it for a while.
But it's just, sometimes it's just so many hours, and there's only so many things you can work on. We have some things we're trying to finish up now, so. But it should be a discussion down the road, but as far as this budget goes. And the rec commission, and I agree, Brett, if we're gonna stay in that building, there has to be some upgrades to it. But is there anything that we want to add or just, or remove from the recreation commission budget request? I have none myself, so I'm just looking
I'm
to,
fine.
I don't,
okay, so we're gonna leave it alone.
So I know I'm not talking about rec. I know we already talked about the ambulance operating. But I just wanted to bring up that we've had some discussion from the ambulance association about the older ambulance has been having some issues. So I didn't know if you wanted to entertain a discussion to put any money into a capital account for the next ambulance.
Logan was supposed to come speak to me about that and he hasn't. So, and I know they have the second ambulance has been repaired. So I'm not ready to entertain putting money into the budget until someone comes and has a discussion with us. And then maybe the discussion goes to the Board of Finance and eventually it goes to the undesignated fund, but at this point, they do have two ambulances and they are both running, so. And if they do sell the building, if they get the deed restriction changed on the Mains Crossing Road, that building has some value and they could sell that, and put that toward the ambulance also, so. I thank you for bringing that up. I know it was mentioned, but he hasn't been to see me, so. Okay. Okay, so that's the three presentations and the two things we went back to visit. I said I'd like to now take, because we're not going to look at this again until I present it on March 8th to the Board of Finance. There's one area I wanted to go back and revisit, and we can all do this if there's an area you want to revisit. I want to go back to the social service and welfare area. The Park Hill Neighborhood Center asked for $40,000 and we cut them back to 30, which is exactly what they were last year. United Community and Family Services asked for, I think it was 8,000. Yeah, let me go back a couple of budgets ago. They asked for an increase of 4,496 and we cut them back to exactly where they were the year before. But looking at this, I noticed that we did bump up some other people that asked for small amounts. So because we did some increases, we increased the TVCCA at $565 and we increased the Women's Center State Futures by $250. We almost penalized these two groups that asked for more money and then we brought them back to where they were the previous year. The Pawcatuck Neighborhood Center does so much for our town. It's an amazing organization and I don't want to be anywhere near where they asked, but I was thinking by giving them like $2,500 and giving the United Commerce Family and Service, United Community Family Services, raise them from $3,564 up to an even $4,000. Those are two organizations. Mrs. Costanza works a lot with the United Community and Family Services, a lot of mental health issues and so on. And I think we all know what Park Lake neighborhood does. I think we're remiss and we're penalizing them by asking for big increases that we just brought them to where they were last year. And I'd like to see two small increases. They don't add up to even $3,000 to bring these two organizations up to a higher number. But again, just my opinion.
I'd agree with that. I know how much the Pawtucket Neighborhood Center does for the town.
So that would bring them up to a 32,500 if we did that. They asked for 40,000.
Yeah, can you just make a motion with everything that you're suggesting?
Yeah, so
I-
let's do two. All right, I motion that the original, so just history, the original ask for the Pawtucket Neighborhood Center was $40,000. My motion is to increase their budget from last year, which was 30,000 by $2,500 and give them $32,500 on that line item, which is B 23.03.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion?
Can you, so you had mentioned that the Women's Center and TVCCA, are you suggesting that we back down and not?
No,
Oh.
I'll leave those there. I just think
So
because
if
they asked for
it's-
small increases, we gave it to them. The ones that asked for bigger increases,
Okay.
we cut them back.
Okay. So you're not suggesting we take from something else and to
No,
give
I'm
them,
not.
to give?
No, I'm
okay.
not, because TVCCA does an awful lot of Meals on Wheels and they do a lot in our town.
I think I
Any
seconded
other
that.
comment? Okay, so we have a first and second. All those in favor of raising the PNC up to 32,500, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Second, United Commercial, Community and Family Services. We gave them a little bit of ARPA money last year, if you remember. Mrs. Costanza came to us and told us how important they were to our town. And I think maybe because we gave them that ARPA money last year is why they went to the bigger increase this year. So if we put them back where they were before ARPA funds, which is 3,564, I think that just keeping them there is not giving them an increase. And I'd like to raise them to an even 4,000, which is an increase of $436.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion to raise United Community and Family Services to $4,000 with an increase of 436. We have a first and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that was the only two adjustments I had, and I'd be willing to listen to adjustments by either Brett or Nicole.
I had one that I wanted to talk about for the registrar of voters. I did mention this at our last meeting. When I did look at comparison towns, when I started doing it for the admin finance officer and the accounting, I did realize they are very low. So they're at the lowest from what I've seen. Most range from $9,000 to $12,000 a year. The reason I bring it up is I know that early voting has passed and they're working out the details. I'd hate to go back and have to try to work this out later. I think it'd be more beneficial to give them a slight bump, and that's what we give them. And if early voting happens, depending on the days, like that's what they get for it. So it gets them more in range. I looked at hours of some of these other towns to compare to make sure, hey, they weren't working 5 days a week. Some of the towns that were paying 9,200, they actually only work, they're in the office 1 day a week. And it's for half a day, but then they're there for the other required times and for the referendums and all the other things. So I do think they should be raised higher than what we are giving them, which is the union, what we
2.5.
gave everyone else.
What are you suggesting?
I was suggesting at minimum $500 increase. each, and I still think that's low, but it's getting them closer, because I just think with our budget, we can't, give,
What percentage
Get
is
it.
that? What percentage is that, Brett?
Huh?
So using last year's number, which is 6,928.
that's 7%. Is that,
7.
yeah, a little over 7%.
All right, so you were saying the increase of 173 and adding 500 to that, you're making it 500 total, correct?
Yeah, and like I said, I think I think it should be more, but I just can't see with this budget, pulling it from somewhere else.
It's not, certainly is not, making up, but I would, be in favor of just removing the $75 increases for second and third selectmen.
I
and-
agree.
And putting it towards the registrar of voters.
Okay, so you want to remove the increase to the second and third selectmen, which we don't know who's who.
No, I don't.
I guess it depends who you're speaking to. So we've never really had that, but so that you want to remove the $75, which is $150 from the budget.
Yeah.
And your increases. And then we'll talk about the registrars in a bit. I'm not opposed to that. When I was a selectman, we did that, I think 3 out of the 4 years, but I'll leave that up to you guys.
I'll second that.
Okay. I don't know if we made it. The motion was to, what did we make a motion? Did we?
I thought you were making a motion.
I'll
to-
make a,
to
so I will make a
remove our
motion.
increase.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to remove the $75 off of the second and third selectmen's salaries. You want to separate out the motions?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think we need-
B101 and B102. Back down to 3,000 even.
Okay, so.
So-
So
I'll
right to the
second
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so when I go to the registrars then. So it's B21 and B21.01. You're gonna make that motion, Brett?
Let me, is it better if we do a percentage, or is it doesn't matter? So I make a motion that we increase the registrar of voters $500 to 74.28.
Okay, I'll second that. Any further discussion?
I
Okay,
just want to say that I think it gives a little basis for the increase, and then by next year at this time, the early voting should be figured out, so then we can also see how many extra hours that really did increase for them.
okay, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's done. Is there any other changes to the budget?
2307, the Franco Lean Center. I know they didn't request it, so is this something they had done before where they're a late request? Because I worry that we get in late and we don't have, they are a valuable social services.
Give me a second. Let me look at last year and see when I stamped it in.
What are you looking at the date when they sent in the request? We're almost done. If Caitlin, if you'd like to go, I know you have school tomorrow. You have a 2-hour delay though, so you can sleep in a little bit. I know that. The superintendent told me that. No, I'm just saying. We probably have another 15 minutes to go. So I'll leave that up to you. And I did take you off the hook on the whole.
No, last year they submitted it in December, so I
Okay.
don't know.
All right. And I'm comfortable.
So should we just leave it where it is at this point?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
if
that's up to you all.
But I mean, if we leave it where it is and then they come back later, we can say, well, we already approved the budget at that, or, and if they never ask it, did they take their money last year?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me the budget's been approved at this number, even if they give us $2,500, this is approved at this number. And if they never take it, it goes back into the undesignated fund, right? So I would just, if it's okay with you, Brett, we just leave it alone for now?
They haven't requested it this year yet, but we also haven't reached out at this point. We usually wait until April, May to
Okay.
say, hey, you haven't gotten your money yet. You want it?
Mhm.
All right. So are we taking any public comment before we vote to send this
Sure, we can.
budget over?
Unless there's any more changes. Nicole, do you have any more additions or subtractions?
Would
No.
you like to hear the number before you?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so right now, as it stands, the government operating is $5,573,808, which is a $254,447 increase, which is 4.78%. The capital is $540,420, which is a $131,765 increase. This sounds like a scary number, but it's not, which is a 32.24% increase. So the overall increase is 1.78%.
Without any Board of Education budget.
I don't know how much better we can get than that.
Well, we'll find out
I know.
on March 8th. Okay, so is there any public comment either in the building or online that would like to comment on our budget discussion this evening before we approve to send this to the Board of Finance? I see a hand, I think.
Right.
Brian? Brian, you're recognized.
As I've been going through the budget here, I'm listening to what you're saying. I hear you. You're doing a great job, I think. But I see with the social services, I think that could be when we had some of the money given to us from the state there because of all the sickness and all.
Mhm.
I think we gave money to different groups, if I remember right.
Yeah, we did.
Maybe I'm wrong on that.
No, we
But
did.
anyways, I would say I'd like to see it go back to the actual of what some of these places used. Because like you say, if they don't use it, it goes in the general fund. To me, that's just overtaxing your taxpayer.
Mhm.
I think you can get rid of, and I said it before, advisory groups. They should go through the process of asking the Board of Selectmen for money of a project or whatever they're gonna do. And then you can go to the Board of Finance and have them either yay or nay it. That's the way I feel about that, because I really don't think, I really think that we're gonna have more of a recession coming up. So I think we gotta really look at this budget again and lower it, because I'm not gonna support it with a big increase. I think you know that. But anyways, that would be my suggestion, like even in social services, if you went back to their actual, instead of giving them more, that's just my suggestion on that. And the other thing I wanted to add, well, I could do it under public comment later. We'll just comment on this. I'll do it under public comment later. I just want to know if you're gonna have the budget ready to look at before you go to the Board of Selectmen, of what the changes you made tonight.
You mean the Board of Finance?
Board of Finance, yes.
So we'll be going to the Board of Finance with a budget that has all the changes from this evening. On the social services, we did go back to the original numbers. We're not including the opera funding that we gave them last year. It was a separate line, separate gift. We're not using that number. We're going back to the original ask. As far as the advisory boards, we're talking about affordable housing, conservation, WPCA, Hewitt Farm. There's some areas we could go and say, yeah, some we could say like affordable housing, you're not going to get any money and you'll have to come to us if you have a project. And then we do the same thing, I guess, with conservation. Although conservation, we give them money, they make they make the calendars and then they pay it. That's what the money they pay us back. The money goes back to their fund. So they really don't get any money from us. WPCA has projects that they're working on, and Ewart Farm's a whole different ball of wax. They have their own money, Ewart Farm money plus money from the town. There's town-owned buildings on that property. So it's a little bit stickier than just somebody like affordable housing.
Well, you got a nonprofit in there, the KNSA.
Yeah, there's a nonprofit in there, but so is Pocketuck Neighborhood and TVCCA and other nonprofits are in there.
Right, but KNSA is supplying a lot of people. You know, and I'm not trying to pick on them, I'm just pointing out that it's those are the things that I think we could cut back on. And then people would know what the money's going for. I have no idea why they need $1,000. I don't even know I don't know where I'd have to look through my budget again. And as far as the affordable housing, you know, we had 2 events. I don't think they were worth the money we spent for them. And anyways, that's what I'm looking at. It would have been better if we, you know, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and then maybe we could have had flyers and all that other stuff. Anyway, that's my suggestion on that. And I'd just like to know if I can get a hard copy of what you discussed tonight before the Board of Finance meeting. Wednesday you go doing? Yeah.
March 8th, so it's 2 weeks, but when?
2 weeks, okay.
No, it's next week, excuse me, next week from tomorrow. So this is version 3. When will version 4 be ready?
Okay.
So Christine says anytime after tomorrow, you can pick up version 4.
Okay,
All right?
I'll see you then. Thanks.
Okay, is there any other comment? Paul Simon.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Christine, and the Board of Selectmen. Sorry for joining late. Could you give me that total number, please, for your change across operating and capital again?
Sure, Christine, I'll give it to you.
So the total change is $386,212, which is a 1.78% increase.
Okay, thank you for that. And what did you have for the change in revenues versus last year?
The new revenue total is $615,558.53.
Of additional revenue this year
Yes.
versus last year. Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Again, sorry for calling in late. I'm sure you
No,
already
okay.
heard this. And tonight, in any of the numbers you discussed tonight, was the tax relief committee's proposal in there, or that's not appropriate since they
No.
reported to the Board of
They have
Finance?
No, they have to present to you first.
Okay. All right, so 600 and change new revenues, 300 and change of new spend. And this is just the Board of Selectmen budget.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Paul. Is that it? Comment?
Can we look at one other real quick
Sure.
before we vote? 2714, which is tree. When I looked over everything, we've never gone really above 18,000. We range from 15 to 18. And we put in 20 in the past, but we never spend it. So that money goes somewhere else sometimes or within the department. I think we should lower it a little bit based on what I'm looking at. Even $1,000 makes a difference.
So the actual on 21-22 was 10,654. There's a proof of 20,000. I don't have my
So year to date printed today, we've spent 18,815.
But we had some major issues with trees, the moss, right, that we took care of. A lot of the ash trees.
I just know that there is still a wait list, if you will, of trees that need to be handled, and we have very little money left. So I'm
Okay.
not comfortable with making that change. Just from knowing what Alan's working on. I think part of it was the assistant foreman is the tree warden, and I
Right.
think with the turnover in staffing had something to do with
Well, I'm
that.
looking back to 2017 and we budgeted it every time, but we've never, like I said, never even come close to it. Well, I shouldn't say close, but 15, 18 was our max. But if you think we're gonna have another gangbuster year with it next year, then okay, that answers it.
I will tell you, I think it's money well spent, however, because if you notice our outages are getting lower and lower all the time. We don't do the state roads, but we do the town roads. And we've done a lot to prevent outages. And the number one fear in North Stonington is power outages with very cold weather. That's the biggest fear.
No, and I agree. They do a great job with it, but I saw that we weren't spending it, so I hate to over budget and then
There is a bill right now that's with the state legislature about funds for tree maintenance, tree removal. So that could be a revenue offset of new funds to help with this account. So if we left the funds as they are right now, we may have a new source of revenue to counter it.
Thank you. I did see that.
then I will make a motion to send this budget as finalized tonight to the Board of Finance.
I'll second.
Do you want me to read the numbers again, just so that
Yes.
they're, okay, so the general government number is $5,573,808. The redemption of debt number, $1,382,949. Capital, $540,420. The total for those three is $7,497,177 without the Board of Ed.
Thank you. And we'll get working on our presentation once this is approved tonight. Perfect. Okay, so we have a first and second. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving this budget as read and worked on this evening, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll get working on that presentation. Thank you so much. Tax refunds, you've got a sheet that we had, there was an addendum. We have two cover sheets, Christina, just the one.
The cover sheet is what's in your packet. The supplemental packet is the slips that go with it.
So we talk about this all day. Can't we just make a motion for the total dollars, or do we have to read each person's
I
name?
thought we
no,
did last
We
time.
can.
So we put we have to, in the minutes, show the individual person's name and the amount. So that it's in public record, but yes, you can just make the motion of the total.
I think that you, Chris, I think Nicole read them all, but then we approved them all in one lump sum.
If you, I hate tax refund. If you do the tax refunds, I'll do the minutes.
All right, I'm just, because.
Not that I don't. I don't.
Where's
hate
the
tax
total
refunds.
again? On this
Was the total on the loose sheets?
Yeah,
The totals on the on the cover sheet.
2360.
yeah, the 2369, I think.
So I will make a motion that we approve tax refunds in the amount of 2369.
73.
73, yes, to CCAP Auto Lease, Vault Trust, Core Logic, Gabriel Guay, Karen Schwer, Joe Gross, Trebesky Law Associates.
I'll second that motion.
236973.
I'll second that. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. Getting there. Next, minutes.
I will make a motion to approve the Town of North Stonington's Board of Selectmen meeting minutes from February 7th, 2023 at 6:30 PM held at the new town hall. and via Zoom as written.
Second.
Okay, motion by Nicole, second by Brett. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next,
I'll make a motion to approve the Town of North Stonington's Board of Selectmen special meeting at the North Stonington Education Center and via Zoom on February 15th, 2023 at 6:30 PM as written.
Second.
okay, again, motion by Nicole, second by Brett Mastriani. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we're to public comment. Brian, did you have something else you want to deal with in public comment?
Oops.
Brian still there?
He's still there.
No, I kind of said it on, I just want to make sure I can get a copy of the budget that you just, that you guys did tonight, so I can go over it too, because the budget I got in my hand is all kinds of pen scratching on it.
No, no. Yeah,
Ours too, Ryan,
we'll
believe
give
me.
you a nice-
Yeah, I know.
nice clean
Thank you
copy.
very much, though, you guys.
Thank you.
Even though I didn't agree with everything, I think you're doing a hell of a good job.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
So next meeting on, Jen, any other comments? Oh, sorry. Oh, Gary,
Hey, am I unmuted?
you are.
Hey, sorry to bother you. Just a quick question about the dump stickers. Do we get one for every registered vehicle we have? Or do we have to pay $40 for every one?
No, the way we've said, it's not set in stone yet, but what we thought we would do is you pay for one for $40, good for 2 years, and then you get a second one for free for a second vehicle. But if you had 6 vehicles, you weren't going to get 6 for $40. So we have to decide once you get by the $40 one and then the initial free one for the second vehicle. If there's more vehicles, if you had 4 teenagers living with you and they all had cars that don't want to go to the transfer station anyway, we'd have to decide how we'd want to charge for those extra vehicles.
Yeah, so part of my tax management program is to drive 6 cars older than 20 years, so the taxes are capped at $14. But at any given time, 2 or 3 of them are dead. So what happens? I'm paying taxes on all my vehicles, but I only get 2 stickers, Bob. You're gonna have to figure this out, buddy.
Well, we'll figure out something. I'm sure that'll be equitable. I'm sure that if your son doesn't get a sticker, it'll be a good excuse so they can't go to the transfer station because he doesn't have a sticker.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Can't wait for the final verdict on this one.
All right. Okay. Is there any other comment? Any other comment? Kayla, do you like to make comment? No, thank you for coming to the meeting this evening, by the way. Come back in the summer when there's no budget talk and it's much shorter. So the next meeting we have is March 14th, but we have one on March 8th that the presentation to the Board of Finance is a week from tomorrow. Our regular meeting is March 14th. And that, I'm sure that meeting will be dealing with whatever comes out of the meeting with the Board of Finance. And actually, maybe there won't be anything we're presenting. They won't be doing any cutting at that point. Then the Board of Finance is meeting with the Board of Ed on the 15th. So it might be the meeting after that we go back and look at our budget.
So the 8th,
The 8th is when I present to the Board of Finance for the Board of Selectmen.
that's not a Board of Ed meeting? Do I have that wrong in my?
Board of Ed presentations on the
It was
15th.
supposed to be a Board of Ed
Yeah.
meeting. Board of Ed has canceled that meeting so that the Board of Finance can have their meeting. Board of Ed is having a special meeting tomorrow.
Thank you.
And I'm tomorrow, I'll make sure I officially cancel the tri-board meeting, which I think was scheduled for early or mid-March, which we decided to wait until June. So I'll get that. So if it's on your calendar, it's not going to happen.
As part of the budget timeline, the Board of Finance will be reviewing the Board of Ed budget on Monday, March 13th. So that's another meeting that the Board of Selectmen should at least listen to hear what the feedback is. So the presentation is on the 8th, and then on Monday, the 13th, they're having a special meeting to talk about the presentation. Same thing's happening with Board of Ed. Board of Ed will present on the 15th. They're having a special meeting on Monday, the 20th, so that when they meet on the 22nd, they can give definitive feedback on both those presentations to give guidance to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed.
So on the Monday, the 13th, they'll be discussing our budget,
Correct.
correct? And I've asked the chair of the Board of Finance to ask his his board to watch this meeting and the previous meeting when we had discussions on our budget, so they have some background information on how we arrived at where we arrived. So,
They'll all be
good.
posted, right?
Yes,
Yep.
and the budget hearing, if we stay on schedule, is Monday, April 17th.
okay. Is there anything else before we get to number 13?
No motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Second, so we will be adjourning tonight at 8:36 PM.
Much better than I expected.
Thank you.